11th. Our first item of business today is consideration for approval, the minutes of the July 14th, 2025 meeting.
I move approval.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So those minutes are approved. Next up, we have the contract for the Birmingham Regional Paratransit Consortium, Class Tran. Who's going to be presenting for that? Ms. Inman? Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Inman, and I serve as the Mayor's Office Accountant. And before you, we have the Birmingham Regional Paratransit Consortium, DBA Class Tran, and we are seeking approval for submission to council for FY26 funding in the amount of $300,000. And I have Ms. Tiffany Taylor here to address any detailed questions you may have.
Okay.
Good morning, Council. My name is Tiffany Taylor. I'm the Finance Manager with Birmingham Regional Paratransit Consortium, also known as Class Tran. We did place a contract in front of you should have, and we are requesting for our federal year 2026 in the amount of $300,000. You may see that there is a small increase. Of course, you know, the costs have gone up across the board everywhere, so we are simply, asking for an additional $50,000. It was $250,000 last year, so we are requesting a total of $300,000.
Okay. One of the things that I'm looking at, there's a reporting requirement as part of the contract. And I think this is a carryover from previous contracts, that there's a monthly report with, various specifications for data. Who does that report get submitted to?
I'm sorry, the reporting?
Yes,
monthly report?
the metrics, so it's number of vehicles operating each day, on-time performance, goals and efforts to increase ridership,
Okay.
monthly ridership by route, average weekday boardings, so on and so forth. There's, looks like 12 different metrics that.
Yes, sir, and I actually will bring forward Mr. Owen Thomas. He is, I deal basically with the financials. Mr. Thomas is over he's our Innovation Operation Manager.
Yeah. Chief Mitchell, do you happen to know who those reports get submitted to?
You don't get them.
Yes, sir. We actually, with us being a nonprofit, we submit different reports. A lot of our funding comes for 5310, our LDOT.
Can you step closer to the mic?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I apologize. We do have to report monthly to LDOT and RPC. We do those reports. We actually we have board meetings that we provide reports to as well. Owen, do you know of any other reports?
I'm familiar with that part of the contract. I believe it is a carryover from years past. I'm not sure who at the city receives reports currently. I know we do send reports to the Office of Senior Services for the nutrition program, the senior nutrition program, but any reporting that is requested or required can come through us, and we'll be glad to provide it. We have plenty of data to share for anyone who wants to look.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, we'll ask them for those reports. It seems like they have them readily available, but it seems like, because Ms. Michelle Inman is our liaison for boards and agencies, so we'll get those reports to the council and to the meeting.
Okay, I'm just wondering if, in the contract language, we need to specify
Yeah,
you know,
that would probably
I
help.
believe.
Yeah, someone to
Yeah.
deliver the reports to, yes.
Yeah, so, you know, my point of reference is the other contract that we'll be discussing, and I think that contract names some positions to whom those reports should go to.
Yeah, we can add that language.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask about is, there's a lot of similarity between class-trans services and paratransit services provided by the BJCTA. And I know, you know, the funding sources are different, federal funding sources are different. You know, one is urbanized areas versus rural. But you know, you guys do operate within the footprint of the city of Birmingham, and, you know, our main public transportation provider also does as well. So talk to me about, you know, coordination between the two agencies, conversation, you know, optimization and efficiency, between the two organizations, if you can.
May I take that?
Please.
Max operates within 3/4 of a mile of any of their fixed routes. We cover the entire county, rural and urbanized areas. We do make sure that we communicate with BJCTA so that we're not duplicating service. For example, those who live within the Max service area and have access to that transportation service would use the Max transit service. We step in and provide transportation for those who don't have access to that system. We bring people from outside of that zone into the zone, and we'll bring people within that zone out of it.
Right.
And just to add, we also refer clients back and forth to each other. So say, for instance, they would not specifically qualify with ClassTran, we would then get in touch or, you know, forward them to Max and their paratransit program that they have as well, and
Right.
vice versa.
So is that based on their place of residence or the origin of the trip? Which one of those?
It's the origin of the trip and the destination. So we don't provide trips where the origin and the destination are within their weekday paratransit service area.
But you, ClassTran does transport and drop off, I would assume, into the city of Birmingham, right?
That's the bulk of our transportation is about 40% of all of our service is dropping off in the Birmingham
Okay.
area.
Yeah, I mean, the issue that I'm dealing with, and it's been, you know, one that I've been concerned about for a long time, is in having, you know, two different agencies, you know, serving the same general regional area. You know, and I understand, you know, the history of why ClassTran exists. You know, and it has to deal with the federal funding not covering administrative, you know, cost. So, but, you know, from an efficiency standpoint, you know, having two entities performing essentially the same service, and their paths, literally being the same, you know, oftentimes for at least a portion of those routes. It would seem to me that there would be opportunities for, you know, coordination, collaboration, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, I want to make sure that I'm giving voice to that concern, and that, you know, you all are aware of it, and that we want to, you know, be moving in the direction of having, you know, sort of a centralized, a center of, you know, public transportation operations, you know, that's delivering the most efficient service to our, you know, constituents. Because there's a lot of city of Birmingham that is not within 3/4 of a mile of a bus route. So you guys are picking up a lot of people in the city of Birmingham, you know, and that's what this contract is all about. But, you know, so especially as BJCTA is seeking to expand the footprint of their on-demand microtransit operations, you know, you can see where there's a lot of potential redundancy. So again, I want to give voice to that and the concern about that, and
May I speak to that?
sure.
So, we performed in FY '24 just over 75,000 trips. This year, we're on track to do pretty close to that, probably looking at about 73,000, although a small increase in the city of Birmingham. The trips that we provide, because of the coordination that we do have with BJCTA and making sure that we do not duplicate service, what they provide, we would not, and what they can't provide, we step in and provide. So those 75,000 trips, without ClassTran, they wouldn't have been performed at all. So we're bringing people into the city for, the biggest reason is the nutrition programs, the senior nutrition programs, but then also after that, medical and dialysis, and then employment. We're bringing people into the city from places that aren't served by the transit authority, like Gardendale, Fultondale, parts of, you know, all over the place that aren't served within, that don't live within that 3/4 of a mile. So there is a lot of benefit that ClassTran provides. And I understand it, on the surface, it seems like, well, we've got 2 transit agencies. Why? Well, there is that 3/4 of a mile rule. And if you want to support people that live a little bit further out from that, which there's a lot of people who need the service, who are elderly, disabled, who need that transportation network to be able to even have access to a service like MAX, who don't happen to live within that 3/4 of a mile, and that's where ClassTran steps in.
So remind me, who's eligible to use ClassTran services?
Anyone 60 and older, anyone with a disability, or anyone who lives within a rural area.
So regardless of age or disability,
Correct.
Anyone who lives in unincorporated Jefferson County can book a ride with ClassTran.
Correct, and it's $4 regardless of distance. So we have people in around Warrior and Morris who need to come to Birmingham for medical services, and we provide that transportation.
Okay. And you said that there's about 75,000 rides in the 24 year, the FY 24
FY '24, and about 40% of that were trips that we dropped off in Birmingham.
Okay. Counselor Tate, Counselor Woods, you guys got any questions?
No questions.
And Counselor Quinn? Just to address one of your concerns.
Sure.
I have been in conversations with Director Shaw, BJCTA, and Director Spencer of Class Tran, and they are trying to collaborate to a deeper level. I know they were supposed to have meetings scheduled. I don't know if that's happened yet, but they are trying to get to a deeper level of collaboration.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that.
Can I get,
Council Woods.
yeah, I wanted to ask just clarity on what you were saying in terms of, were you saying that they should divide the route to maybe make more efficiency or on a smaller route, or the concern of the overlap, if you could give some more context to that?
Well, I mean, just at a very high level, my concern is that you got an organization that specializes in a type of transportation, and then you have a much larger organization that also provides that type of transportation, has their own fleet, you know, wheelchair accessible vehicles, so on and so forth. So just from a simple standpoint of like the rolling stock, you know, you got Class Tran owns some vehicles that can do this and has drivers, and BJCTA has the same thing. So, you know, in a hypothetical world, it seems like the most efficient way of operating that type of system where you're serving a specialized, you know, a subset of demographic, is to have one organization that serves an entire region, rather than two. And, you know, historically, the reason that it's set up that way is, I believe it's 5311 is the federal funds that are the set aside for rural transportation. 5311 funds do not cover administrative costs. And so way back when BJCTA was formed, they elected not to take on rural transportation, public transportation. So the Class Tran really was an invention of that circumstance that, you know, public transportation for rural areas, and I say rural kind of in quotes because you have a lot of the city of Birmingham that's, you know, still served by Class Tran. But yeah, Class Tran was created out of necessity because there wasn't a public transportation service that would serve the area outside of that 3/4 mile distance of a fixed route.
So I guess like at a more zoomed in practical level, do we know, or maybe I gotta get that answer today at some point, but in terms of BJCTA's ability to absorb the 73,000 rides, does that currently exist, or is that capacity that they would need to build?
Yeah, I don't know, you know, and it just as easily could go the other direction where you have, you know, potentially Class Tran, you know, we're talking hypothetical here, but, you know, what if Class Tran were to provide all of the services of that sort, you know, that were needed for the entire region versus, you know, BJCTA having that operation in addition to all the other stuff that they're doing. So, I don't know, but I would like the two entities to be talking about it, you know, and for us as a major stakeholder to be interested in that conversation and, you know, trying to make the most of the resources that we provide. So, And I kind of say that in the context of this contract because, you know, in the past, things that we're interested in and we would like these entities to be working towards, you know, we've made a point of putting those things in the contract language, you know.
Yep, no, I can see that. I think there are probably some conversations to be had that could create some more efficiency in their process in terms of where they pick up, but, you know, those are 70+ thousand real rides that
Right.
are absolutely needed. And regardless of who does it, we're probably subsidizing on some level those efforts, from a city point of view. But yeah, I was just trying to get some context around where you were coming from there, so.
Yeah, I mean, the main point of bringing it up is that, I guess this is now my 7th or 8th year that I've been chair, except for a brief period of the Transportation Committee. And, you know, this is something that has kind of been on my radar for a long time. And, you know, want us as our public transportation services incrementally, you know, improve. This is something that's sort of on the checklist of things to work on. So, whether or not, you know, we identify some language to include in the contract, you know, I don't know that at this point, if I have a solid suggestion of something that we could include in there, but in any case, my primary point of bringing it up is just to, you know, share the concern, while this is before us, and, you know, let you guys know and mull it over as well.
All right, question for y'all. How do y'all track y'all's data in terms of rides that you give? How is that stored? I guess, how do you report that? What is that format?
Sure, we use Ecolane software, the same that is used by BJCTA, so we can track trip level data as well as route level data. There is more than I could stand up here and name, but pretty much anything you want to know about our service, our efficiency, any metrics like that, we can provide that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably just look at either council administrator or something, like getting some kind of direct report to the council. That language, I think, looking at that, so we can kind of be a little more in the flow of that data from both organizations.
Yeah, so Chief Mitchell, if we could, you know, name some specific positions that would receive that monthly report, and we would like, you know, somebody within the council office to be included as one of those positions so that the council has an opportunity to see these reports as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So apart from that, do we have any other questions or concern about the contract? If not, are we ready to make a recommendation to the council, or?
Yeah, I move we send this to the full council with a recommendation to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so that, we'll move on to the full council with a recommendation from the committee.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next up, we also have the contract for transportation services from BJCTA. Yeah,
So I'll piggyback with this with Ms. Michelle and the leadership from the BJCTA. So what's before this committee is the annual agreement for the Transit Authority of Jefferson County and Birmingham. So I think that the council, especially this committee, has some thoughts and some pleasures of what we wanted to do with this contract going forward. And we're open to hearing those deliverables per se. I know Councilor Williams had some things that he wanted to discuss pertaining to this agreement, and I know this committee also has some things they want to put into the contract going forward to make sure it's a reasonable agreement for both parties, especially for the benefit of the citizens of Birmingham. So I'll yield to the leadership at BJCTA if you wanted to include something else.
No, I'm here to answer any questions. My name is Glenn Dickerson. I serve as the Chief Financial Officer. And, of course, we're here to petition the council to approve our contract for next year. We brought some of my colleagues, if there are any questions about ridership, anything like that, we're poised to answer those questions for you this afternoon.
Okay. So, one of the main concerns, so the council was able to meet with BJCTA and Director Shaw recently, and one of the major things that came out of that conversation was for a few years now, it seems like a few years at least, the BJCTA has been working on a mobile application that would basically aggregate all of the different transportation services provided within the region and be a tool that an individual could use to access any of those different forms of transportation. So the council is very interested in seeing that idea manifested to reality. You know, this is something that's available in other major metro areas and has been for you know, a while now. So we need to set a date certain and you know, get that in front of us.
Okay. Well, I have an update. We expect to have that app up and running and implemented by November of this year. So,
Okay. Now, how does that statement differ from previous statements where it was, you know, anticipated that we would have the app, you know, up and running by November of last year? You know, so.
but I think that date that I just mentioned is more firmer than it has been in the past. There was some complications in actually getting solicitations on the street and getting a provider for the app. But I'm happy to present and say to you that I think the date November is a solid date.
And that's, you know, you as Director of Finance for BJCTA, that's, the resources are in place to make that happen.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. I mean, given the level of, you know, concern that I've heard, that concern, interest that I've heard from the council, we would like to be kept in the loop on the progress that you guys are making towards that. I mean, this is really important to the council. I'm just gonna say it plainly.
We'll update you monthly as we provide monthly reports. We'll add that to the monthly report to make sure that you're kept in the loop on where that progress is. But we had a conversation with Director Shaw right before this meeting, and she's committed, and we are, an agency, are committed to standing firm on that date. So I think that's a date you can write down, and we're pretty certain that it won't be moving from the date November.
Okay. Other questions?
So the month is November. The month is November? Just, okay, the
Right.
month. So no date, but just November.
Yeah.
Right,
that's-
November.
that's-
Well, it's hard to put a particular date in November, but that's the scheduled date. We're committed to adhering to that date. I'm aware that we've said a lot of dates in the past, and those dates actually did slide, so we understand the concern of the council about hearing a date from us and thinking that it's just another date that we're just throwing out there. But we're committed to making sure that date is working. We've actually put solicitations on the street. And I can stand here before you and say certain that the progress is moving. We're moving forward. Hopefully, there's nothing that will come up to make that date slide. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, give me some more details about the project. I mean, was there a RFP that was sent out? You know, was there bids submitted for the project? You know,
Right,
Help me
there
out.
were proposals submitted, there were respondents to the proposal. Several people actually submitted solicitations, and we've actually chosen a provider, and we're going through a process now of coming up with a contract for that. Seemed like Watanji had some updates there.
Good afternoon, Council. Vatangia Peak Feeney from the BJCTA. As Chief Dickerson has stated, we do have a selected vendor. We had our project kickoff meeting effective on July the 22nd. We have a rigorous schedule. We have a bi-weekly meeting with our project team. I can publicly announce, because the vendor has been chosen, that Zed Digital is our vendor of selection for both our website and our Project Pivot, is what we call our mobile app. And the project schedule, I did share a draft schedule to the council about a few weeks ago, came as a directive from Directive Inman, that has a soft launch date for the mobile app at the end of November. We'll have a mobilized app as a great Christmas present, but we'll have a soft launch that's going to be rolling out to the general public on the end of November. We have seen app previews to kind of give an idea of what the BJCTA would like to see. And thus far, the apps are looking pretty good. So like Chief Dixon stated, we do have a very rigorous schedule, as our CEO has told the vendor that we would not slip this date again. And as he mentioned before, there were issues as far as putting it out on the streets. And of course, we had a few hiccups as far as getting it out. Our board just approved this vendor back in May. So once we got a contract initiated with this vendor, we had our first project kickoff meeting for the project.
could you give me the name of the vendor again?
Zed Digital. Zed, Z-E-D, Digital.
DED Digital.
Z as in zebra.
Zed.
Zed
All right.
Digital,
Okay,
yes.
Zed Digital. Got it. All right. Yeah, Counselor Tate?
Yes, sir. Ms. Finney, what type of education, or will you guys have, like, I know people got to get used to using an app, but what type of education component would be attached to this, as far as like, you may have like an informational video where it's showing people, like you got somebody demonstrating, like
Yes,
some
so
type
there-
of demonstration?
Yes, ma'am. So there is a marketing campaign that's attached to this. There's going to be a whole month of marketing from, like you said, videos, in-person tutorials, and so forth. That is working with our vendor, of course, even with our marketing manager that we have in-house. So it's going to be a very rigorous training, teachable not just to our external customers, but also our internal customers as well. And a part of the project schedule that I'd include to the council, it shows all those dates in there as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Could you, one or both of you, also speak to the concerns that are raised with ClassTran, you know, about coordination and, you know, eliminating potential redundancy.
Sure. And as a spokesman for ClassTrans said, we serve individuals with disabilities within 3/4 miles of our routes, and they serve outside. But we do see the ability to come together and collaborate with ClassTrans to provide seamless service and actually to not duplicate efforts there. We understand your concerns, Councilor Quinn. But we have been in contact with him, in discussion with them, and more on a higher level now than has been in the past. So hopefully within the next few months, we'll work out something where actually you'll be satisfied that we're not actually duplicating efforts and we're actually working with them more in a collaborative effort manner than we have in the past. So we think you'll be glad when we come together and do that.
That's great to hear. Appreciate that. All right. Council Woods.
Thank you. Yeah, I think not necessarily duplicating efforts, because you can't, you know, one person can only be in either the BJCTA van or the ClassTrans van at a time, but are you envisioning, like, basically, or I guess let me ask you this. Where are y'all in terms of y'all's capacity to deliver this service? Are y'all maxed out, or do y'all have room to do more?
Well, when it comes to paratransit, it does. We are at our maximum capacity now because of lack of drivers that we've experienced since COVID. So it's really hard to actually service everybody that actually desires a service. So a service like ClassTrans is needed when you talk about the whole county, because that would be a big area that we're trying to serve. The question is whether or not we could use vehicles to actually service in those areas. Now, the vehicles we use actually were funded by the FTA, which means that we couldn't go outside the service area to do that right now. But the question that Councilor Quinn had, could we actually acquire vehicles with other funds and actually to service them? And the question is, we'll work through that and find out how we can do that better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at efficiency, so I don't know that, if if ClassTrans has already leaned in on this space further and delivering that, consistently. I'm just trying to get a feel for, where y'all are in terms of capacity, and then is that a point of focus? Is that something that y'all intend? And you don't have to answer all these specific things right now, but is that a space y'all intend to grow in or desire to grow in? But just part of that conversation has probably got to take place over the next several years.
Right. I can't say it's been high in the
No.
strategic plan of us to do that, but it
You don't
is
have to-
something
yeah,
that we've actually discussed.
I'm just putting the thought out.
Right.
You don't have to answer that.
Chief?
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback, and it's not really per se with BJCTA, but we saw the need with paratransit outside of ClassTrans and BJCTA when we added additional accessibility van to Birmingham On Demand. And so we are in negotiations and contracts with the BJCTA for them to take over via Birmingham On Demand, because they're able to get reimbursed through the FTA. So we're working through that. So that will actually expand their footprint of having the accessibility advance for the city of Birmingham in just our area. So we are looking at that.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a big need for, based on just what I'm hearing from constituents. We have a lot of seniors that live in the city of Birmingham that have a mobility device. And so the regular Birmingham On Demand vehicle, while, they may be able to get themselves into, that vehicle and go somewhere, they don't have their mobility device with them once they arrive at that destination. So, and I believe in our current Birmingham On Demand zones, that there's only one wheelchair accessible vehicle.
We added another one last year.
Okay, yeah, but probably still not enough to meet the demand at that same rate of, a 5 to 10 minute response. BJCTA, as I understand it, has a lot of wheelchairs, or a significant number of wheelchair accessible vehicles that could help expand that capacity, so. But in any case, I'm thinking about, just paratransit services in general. You got administrative costs, you have, systems, that have to be in place to book the rides, and that has to be administered. And so, again, you've got two organizations basically doing the same thing. I understand the geographies are slightly different. But there's a lot of crossover between those geographies, so, I think it's in everybody's interest, to move towards greater efficiency, so. All right. I don't think we were able to do our annual, work session this past year, for the 2025 year, but, just want to point out that that's still in the contract and something we aspire to do. I call it sort of our deep dive, for, in addition to supplement the monthly reports that we get. So we sort of did that a little bit with the recent lunch meeting that we had, so that was really good and appreciated. All right, committee members, how would you guys like to proceed?
Will we send this to the full council with a recommendation to approve?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion is approved, and that will go on to the full council.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right, next up on our agenda, so we have all of the city's appointments to the BJCTA Board of Directors actually expire this month. And as you recall, last year we had a vacancy where we announced for people to apply for that, to fill that vacancy. So I've directed my team to make contact with the individuals that applied. And I'll, we'll make the announcement to solicit any additional applicants. But I wanted to get some sense from you all about how to proceed with interviews. And I was going to make a suggestion that once we've identified and finalized our applicant pool, that in place of one of the, perhaps the either, probably not the next meeting of the committee, but the following one, and the first meeting in September, that we conduct those interviews in place of having a committee meeting. So that would be around September 7th, I think, September 8th. And basically just wanted confirmation from the committee that that was a reasonable way to proceed.
The representative from District 1 confirms.
I second.
Okay, all right, so that's what we'll do. So we'll go ahead and schedule a conference room and for if we want to do these in person. Otherwise, we can, you know, either us join in person and have the applicants virtual, but we'll figure that out. But we'll make all that happen on September 8th. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. So do we have a motion to adjourn or any other business to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.